Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Invisible Condition. It's not all in your head. And I'm your host, Jeff Pearson. We created this show for you, because we want everybody with an invisible condition to know beyond the shadow of a doubt that they have a voice, they have a community, and they are not alone. And to that end, I have an amazing guest today. Her name is April Federico, and she nearly lost her battle with diabetic ketoacidosis. Man, I'm glad I got that out. I was worried if I was going to say that word right. Diabetic ketoacidosis on February 14th of 2022. Spent 4 days in the ICU, which led her to her true life's purpose, which is to educate and empower the public on type 2 diabetes, including prevention, which is kind of the most important part, right? Her success story in beating type 2 diabetes is less than a year has led her in becoming an international speaker. Now she teaches women 18 and over to manage their chronic illness by beginning with the root cause. What a concept. And teaching them to, with nutrition, that nutrition doesn't have to suck, which is true. It's true. Nutrition's pretty cool. So I love that. I love this. This is going to be so fun. So welcome, April, to the show. Good morning, April.
Well, good afternoon on my time.
Oh, good afternoon. Sorry. That's right. It's afternoon where you are. That's right.
That's okay. But I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. It's like we're time traveling already. This is great. So tell us your experience about being diagnosed with type 2. It was like your ICU stay and all the things. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, so to begin with, it was February 14th, Valentine's Day of 2022. And it was the very first day of my first big girl job. And by big girl, I mean corporate.
Oh,
and
all right.
And I knew something was wrong from the get-go. And I remember texting my mom profusely, being like, something's wrong with me. I need to go home. And in fact, going home on the first day of your first big girl job, how awful is that?
Not great. Yeah.
Not great. But in hindsight, I would have had to been taken home in an ambulance, or at least to the hospital, I mean.
Mhm.
And the fact of the matter is that I was nearly dying of diabetic ketoacidosis.
Oof.
And I had no idea that I was in fact diabetic until that very night.
Oh my gosh. That's a little bit of a shock. How did that go? I mean, like, they tell you this and you just go, what? Like,
yeah.
How does that conversation go, Well,
yeah, I'll tell you exactly how it went. So I actually woke up in the ICU. I was in and out of a diabetic coma.
Ugh.
And like, as most people don't know, there's nothing really you can do about a diabetic coma, which
Mm.
was really scary to me in hindsight and probably scary AF for my mom, who was
Yeah,
there with me in the hospital.
a little bit.
Yeah, she's my
Oh,
mom and she doesn't want to lose a kid. Who
no.
does? And yeah, and I just remember waking up. I was still half asleep and still partially in a coma.
Mm.
And I remember doctors and nurses just interrogating me about where, the HELL where I was.
Yeah.
And I think at one point I said I was at my boyfriend's dad's pool party because so out of it. And
Sure.
and the fact the first thing I wanted to do was text my boyfriend to tell him what was going on, but really I
Right.
didn't know what was going on. And the fact of the matter is that I was in fact diabetic.
Hmm.
And I remember when I semi regained consciousness, a doctor told me that, April, you do know you're diabetic, right? And I wanted to say, I do now.
Thanks, Doc.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so thanks.
I mean, better to know now than not, I guess. I mean, better than being misdiagnosed with something, and going down that road. So I guess at least they got it right the first time, right? That was good.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. They didn't really get it right the first time. They thought it was COVID.
Of course they did.
Yeah, of course they did, because
Everything's
those
COVID.
symptoms
Yeah.
are actually related to COVID. So all the symptoms, like everything from, constipation to frequent urination to just puking profusely.
Ugh.
And keep in mind, and not to be gross or anything, but my bile was black.
Oh my Lord.
It was bad. I knew something was wrong.
Wow.
And
You
then,
know, I can relate to that a little bit. I've had two NG tubes in my life.
ooh,
Yeah, that could be a medieval torture device. I tell you what. And so
ooh.
yeah, when you get to see the flow of whatever. I'm not trying to make anybody lose their breakfast watching this or anything, but I get what. But all I'm saying is I understand what you're saying with the color of the thing and the yeah, it's pretty gross. Yeah. So ooh, wow. But you're here, so that's
Yeah.
good. I mean, you survived. Uh, that couldn't have been fun, but I just want to throw this out there. Anybody in the audience right now that's watching um, our live show here, if you're watching on Facebook or YouTube or E360 or wherever, um, if you have experience with type 2 or if you don't and you're kind of freaking out and going, what do I do now? This is your girl right here. This is you've got about 46 more minutes to ask her a question or to post a question or post a comment or something, and we'll see it, and we might be able to talk to you or whatever. But um, anyway, all that to say, we are live, and you can post a question if you'd like to. So just April, just for those of us that don't know, because I'm one of them. Um,
Mhm.
what is ketoacidosis?
So it's essentially, well, in layman's terms, it's when
Yeah.
your pancreas is on the verge of shutting down
Ooh.
because you're completely insulin resistant. And yeah, it's
Okay,
bad.
that's
And it's eventually when acid starts building up in your blood,
mm.
because your pancreas is just unable to produce insulin at that point.
Oh my god. So is that like stomach acid in your blood, or is it what kind of like just acidic properties in your blood?
Yeah, it's just like acidic properties in your blood.
Oof.
I'm not sure the exact
I mean, it's not.
terminology behind it.
Yeah, it's not great either way. I'm so not uh, haven't dealt with that before. Don't really know a ton about ketoacidosis. I do know about diabetes a little bit. I mean, it seems like that is a growing thing. Like so many people have it now that everybody's heard of diabetes. But what's the difference between type 1 and type 2? You said you have type 2.
Yes.
Okay.
So the main difference between type 1 and type 2 is that type 1 is hereditary, and it is in fact, people with type 1 are actually more susceptible to DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis.
Mm.
In fact, that's the type they thought I had in the beginning
Hmm.
because of all the ketones that were in my system.
Wow.
And but the fact of the matter is that with type 2, it's more mild and it's actually reversible.
Ooh, cool.
And
I
it's
like
more
that word.
lifestyle based. So it really depends on what you eat, how and if you exercise, because at that point, before that fateful night, where it could have turned drastically into a nightmare.
Uh-huh.
Um, I wasn't really exercising and I was basically eating Uber Eats profusely.
So
And
pretty much whatever you want, right? Yeah.
exactly. Like, I thought I was invincible, and again, the fact of the matter is that you're not invincible.
Uh-uh.
You have to take care of your health.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I ask about the type 1, type 2 because I know somebody that in his 40s was found out he had type 1.
Oh.
So I that's why I asked, because like type 1 I thought was something from birth. But
Mhm.
there's no way this guy survived 40 plus years as a type 1 diabetic without him knowing that he was a type 1 diabetic. Like, so I wonder if, so it's kind of still rolling around in my head. Like, did he acquire it? Is it possible to acquire type 1, you know, and not have to be born with it? I don't know, but there is definitely differences. So thank you. Yeah. Looking back, were there warning signs or anything that
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah, there were so many warning signs, and again, they don't teach you this stuff in primary, secondary, and nor do they teach you this stuff in medical school,
oh,
unless you're becoming an endocrinologist. And
geez.
the fact behind that is that there's this huge stigma that, diabetics just give diabetes to themselves, whether they have type 1 or type 2. And there's also this huge socioeconomic factor, which I think is so unfair.
Well, how so? What do you mean?
I mean, with socioeconomic factors, more people are susceptible to food insecurity. And with food insecurity comes poor nutrition habits.
I gotcha. I gotcha. So yeah, because food that don't the cheaper food less is worse for you.
Yeah,
That's basically what you're saying.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah, and especially nowadays, in the last 2 or 3 years, it's gotten, I mean, ridiculous with the food prices, and not to mention that in this country in general, just to throw this out there, we have hardly any food left in our food anyway. So
Exactly.
unless you're a perimeter shopper and you just eat fruits and vegetables primarily, you're really, and even then you still got to be pretty picky. So, oh my gosh, yeah, it's okay. Now I get it. Now I get it. So, what's the biggest challenge that you faced dealing with type 2, especially during like your ICU stay, and then like afterwards? Now that you've got this life changing news, you know, now what?
Well, the hardest part was accepting it, and
Mm,
I felt like my whole past life was completely gone, and
mm,
I was crying pretty much every night to the point where I was sitting on my bed, um, at, like, 1 a.m. petting my cat, and if you
mm.
look at my Instagram, there's actually a TikTok of me doing this,
Uh,
and I actually said at one point, like, "I don't know when the crying will stop, but I know that there is hope."
I love
And
it.
believe me, it was a huge emotional roller coaster that I could not get off on. But, I was able to get off the emotional roller coaster, thank God.
Yay.
And,
uh,
because the truth of the matter is that you can, complain and moan about, a situation, and this concept really goes for anybody dealing with any chronic illness. You can complain and moan about it all you want, or you can do something about it. Turn your pain into purpose.
mhm. I love it. I kind of say it a little different. Everybody's got a version of that, right?
Mhm.
I kind of like to say your attitude is the only thing you have 100% control over.
Exactly.
So, nobody wants to deal with a jerk. So, so just don't be one.
Yeah, just don't be one.
You know,
It's karma.
yeah. I mean, contrary to popular belief, you do have control over yourself and your emotions. So,
You do. And part of what separates me as a nutritionist is that I focus on the mindset quite a bit.
mm,
In fact, one of the things I wanted to discuss on your show today, Jeff, is my signature Cicero method. And
yes,
that is confidence and intelligence create emotional resilience to optimize your well
nice.
being.
Got it. I was trying to follow the letters while you were saying it. Yeah, I got it. All right, nice. I love that. So just to we'll get to. I want to dive into that, and we'll get into more of that. And we got about a couple more minutes, and then we're going to do a commercial. But after we come back from the commercial, I totally want to dive into that because I want everybody to hear all about it. But before we go, can you just like you kind of touched on this a little bit, but is there any like misconceptions or stigmas or anything like that that you particularly noticed when you finally were diagnosed and then you're living with this, and what were some of those, and if somebody else is struggling with those, what would you tell them with that?
Yes. So, well, the first really warning sign for me, and this goes completely, this can go undiagnosed when it comes to women's health, but I thought I had PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Mhm.
And I was diagnosed with that in the December before I was diagnosed.
Mm.
And because I had my menstruation for 11 days, which is
Oh,
not normal.
no.
Yeah, it's not normal.
Uh-uh.
And it turns out that when that happens, an irregular period can actually be an indicator of a um, underlying health issue
Yep.
that needs to be addressed.
And it
And
could be so many things too. That's the bad thing. It could be so
exactly.
many things. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, no, you're fine. And yeah, and it's really fascinating to me, the whole aspect of women's health, and this is why I primarily work with women. Because one, I know the anatomy more of a woman, and two, it's just women's health often goes underlooked. But to answer your question fully, I was dealing with symptoms of, constipation, chronic fatigue,
Mhm.
which is what I thought I had at first. Like maybe it was just an iron deficiency or something.
Yeah.
But it turned out to be, again, so much more. And then it was, let's see, um, what was I saying? Sorry, I just got a text. But the fact of the matter is, the um yeah, the symptoms were there, and the
Yeah.
symptoms were very much prevalent, and the symptoms were, just glaring in my face, and in hindsight I could have gotten it done sooner,
Mm.
like my blood test results and all that jazz.
Yeah.
But then it was um just coming all at me at once in that fateful night.
One part of it is you don't know what you don't know. So and then all of it comes at once, and then you go, and then, and what are you supposed to do with that? You really have to work hard to collect your thoughts and actually think clearly in that time. And it's really hard. So I
Yeah.
totally get it. But, I mean, yeah, it's rough, but I tell you what, we're going to go take a commercial break real quick, but everybody stick around because she alluded to it a little bit there, what she's learned and how she's helping other people with this, with the acronym that I'm going to she's going to have to do it again. Cause
Cicero.
but we're going to talk more about that in the second segment. So everybody stick around. This is going to be great. And we will see you in just a couple minutes.
is Adriana Morrison, host of the Health Revolution TV show. Join us Tuesdays and Thursdays. My name is Adriana Morrison, host of the Health Revolution TV show. Join us Tuesdays and Thursdays live, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where our mission is simple: engaging conversations, elevating health and wellness, empowering transformation. Right here on the Achieve TV channel on E360 TV.
I went to that commercial and hit the button to play that, and I don't know, it didn't agree with me. So I did.
Oh, you gotta love technology.
we got to see the lovely Adriana Morrison twice. So, she's awesome, by the way. She's got a really cool show. So if anybody hasn't seen it, it's on Achieve TV also, and it's really cool. I think it's coming. I think it's right after this one,
Awesome.
or shortly. So anyway, so if nobody's seen it, if you haven't seen it yet, check it out. So let's see. So you were talking about your success story about beating type 2 diabetes in less than a year.
Yes.
Is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
So obviously once the shock wore off, right? and you came down off the ledge and decided to, okay, we're going to do something about this. What were some of the key lifestyle changes or strategies or the things that you developed that helped you get there?
Yes. So part of the Grow method, which was birthed a year ago this month, actually, I knew I had the confidence to beat my diagnosis, and I knew I had the confidence to be resilient in my diagnosis. I knew I could come out of this like absolutely perfect if I wanted to be. And of course, no one's health journey is perfect. However, I was striving and being the perfectionist that I am. I knew that I knew I could come out of it, just knowing that I'm young. I mean, I was diagnosed when I was 25 and I'm 27 now, and it's pretty much been it's had its winding journeys, winding roads,
Sure.
but the fact of the matter is that I stayed consistent with my diet, and I stayed consistent without restricting myself completely. However, I didn't follow the whole everything in moderation thing because I just think it's crap.
Okay. How do you really feel about that? I wish you would just, So the everything in moderation thing is crap. Okay, tell me about that. Explain that.
Yes. Yeah, because
That's
that
quite the
within
claim
itself is with that in and of itself is a restrictive mindset. And part of having a growth mindset is being open to pretty much anything. And part of having a success mindset, and this is something I preach in my coaching as well,
Nice.
is being successful in not only your diet, but also in life. And once you apply the whole, you can do anything, you can be anything, you can eat anything you want, you can pretty much do anything in life that anything life throws at you. And that's why I've worn so many hats in my lifetime. I was an influencer, I was a journalist, and I'm a nutritionist, and I'm planning on going to law school. So all these things.
Wow.
So
Okay. Law school. Wow. That's that's pretty eclectic right there. That sounds like my resume a few years ago, There was one year I had 13 W-2s to deal with at the end of the year. I thought I did about everything that year. So yeah. Hey, sometimes it makes you better for it, right? So,
exactly.
that's awesome.
And that's another part of the whole healing journey.
Yeah.
And you have to really stop and kind of think about how you're grieving your past life after
Mhm.
this scary diagnosis. And this goes for anyone dealing with any chronic illness. And for anyone dealing with the chronic illness, well, first of all, you're not alone.
Mm-mm.
And second, you can beat this with the power of mindset. And this is where the empowerment through education really helps. And by applying yourself to all these things, like when I became a nutritionist, I was constantly studying the anatomy of the human body, not just women's bodies, but the body as a whole.
Mhm.
And I became infatuated with the nutrition that goes into it. And I became infatuated with everything that goes into having a healthy body in general. And that includes exercise, that includes, skincare products, because
Yeah.
really everything goes to your gut. And Hippocrates was right when he said that all disease begins in the gut. And this is actually why I also became a gut health consultant.
Oof, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the gut-brain connection, right?
Absolutely.
I'm telling you. I learned that a few years ago too, and it blew my mind, but it's so true. Was it so was it Hippocrates? I try and remember one of those guys back in the day that said, let your food be your medicine be your food,
That was
right?
Hippocrates.
That was Socrates. Okay. See,
Hippocrates.
Hippocrates. That was him. Okay.
Yep.
Nice. So that's the same guy that we get the Hippocratic Oath, right?
Yep.
First and foremost, do no harm, and then there's more to it. But but yeah, I mean, he was a smart guy. You know, the food is the key. But we have to have real food to eat. I guess
Exactly.
that's the struggle is real, right?
Yeah,
in
the
the
struggle
United
is real.
States.
But here's the thing, there need not be a struggle. And the reason being is because, well, one, I actually touch upon this in my book, which
Okay.
is a type 2 diabetes tracker,
Nice.
um, and which you can get on Amazon. But aside from that, um, there really shouldn't be a struggle when it comes to your diet. And this is where the everything in moderation comes in, and it's just marred. And 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 the fact of the matter is that you it's like you are in charge of your own health, and you really shouldn't do harm to anyone else, like Hippocrates said, or you can do harm to your body, your own body. Because really, and Dr. Mark Hyman says that we treat the earth the same way we treat our bodies, and we treat our bodies the same way we treat the earth, which is an underlying message. We treat our bodies like trash. And that's a sad fact about public health.
Yeah, yeah. The with the whole yeah. What struck me a few years ago is the food pyramid thing.
Mhm.
That's supposed to be like the pyramid of health. The foundation is this, and you should eat most of that, and then a little of that, and a little of that, and then the least amount of this. And I, it was not founded in health. It was
Mhm.
founded in availability of resources at the time, if I'm not mistaken.
Mhm.
And so that's what the food pyramid looks like because of that. And so it was created like 80 years ago or something when, those things were readily available. And so that's why it was at the bottom of the pyramid and it said, eat the most of this because we have plenty, you know?
Yeah.
And so that doesn't have your health in mind. It has the resources of the government in mind and the resources of the agricultural industry in mind, and which is definitely not your health. So
Exactly.
yeah, so
And
seek
to
other counsel.
Yeah, and to build off of that, and part of what I was going to say earlier about my book was that I have this little section about how to read a nutrition label accurately, and
Yeah.
that is something most people underlook. And I'll also give you a little secret when it comes to shopping at the grocery store, and that is shop in the perimeter of the grocery store.
Yes.
Meaning you got your produce section, you got your meats, and you have your dairy products. Everything in the middle, and I'm not talking everything in the middle, but
Generally speaking.
generally speaking, yeah. I mean, that stuff that you see at eye level, people want you to buy that. Because not only is it basically trash for your body, but it's also the cheapest thing you can get.
Because it's cheap for them to produce.
Yeah.
That's why it's at eye levels, because they can produce it for pennies and then they make a huge profit on it. So, yeah. Perimeter shopper. I've been a perimeter shopper for years. I'm totally with you on that. And even some of that is getting scary now. But yeah, that's good. That's yes. Listen up, everybody. Perimeter shopping. That's the way to do it. So just out of curiosity, I mean, you mentioned this before, but at what point did you, in your eclectic journey of doing things for a living, when did you decide to do the nutritionist, go that route? And what was the driving force there? I think I know the answer, but.
Yes. And I think you mentioned it in the very beginning. The driving force was really when I was in the ICU. And being in the ICU was hell.
Yeah.
Hell on wheels. And it was definitely not the ideal situation that anyone wants to be in. Because when you're coming into an ICU to see a patient, they're at their absolute worst. And I was in such bad shape. In fact, I was receiving calcium injections because I was in such bad shape and health. And it was literally just a wake-up call to, take care of your health, but also just educate and empower the public on it.
Yeah.
This, like, diabetic ketoacidosis could have been preventable at all costs. And it really is preventable. And if we have the educational resources just to prevent it, I mean, it could just like be non-existent.
So what would you say to somebody that says, I don't make a lot of money, I'm a single parent, whatever the reason, I have to buy all that cheap packaged stuff because being a perimeter shopper is too expensive because all the fresh stuff is more.
So what I would say to them is buy in bulk whenever you can. And by buying in bulk, I mean that
buying one in bulk.
Like buy produce in bulk, buy dairy in bulk. And buying in bulk essentially means buying like many things at once.
Right.
Or like one product, but with many of that product.
Like Costco versus King Soopers kind of
exactly.
Thing. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And so yeah, you're getting it for less cost per item by doing the bulk thing. But can fruits and vegetables and fresh meat and all that can being a perimeter shopper really be as filling as, because some of that stuff, I mean, the ingredient list on some of this stuff is like you almost have to have another panel on the packaging just to get all the ingredients on there. And that's part of the reason it's so filling, is because it's all this artificial stuff that makes you feel full, but you're really not. So you keep eating, and so with this with the actual food, the fruits and vegetables and dairy and meat and that kind of thing, how does that work? Because how can you be full and not spend more money?
Yeah. So the fact behind the cheaper foods is that it gives us a dopamine rush. And with dopamine comes more of a cortisol rush.
Mm-hmm.
And cortisol, as some people may not know, is the stress hormone. And as the stress hormone rises, so does the dopamine levels. It's like being on your phone gives you a dopamine rush. However, it does give you more of a cortisol leverage.
Yeah.
It's like you're constantly worrying or like comparing yourself to people on social media, and which you really should not do.
Please don't do
And
that.
yeah,
No.
don't do that. Just a side note.
Yeah.
And,
That one's for free. Don't compare yourself to people on social media, please.
exactly. And that's just another thing. Like comparing one's journey, one's health journey to another is just not good. And part of the reason why I preach that as a nutritionist is because I've dealt with my fair share of eating disorders, everything from anorexia to bulimia to binge eating. And it's just my body's been through the ringer. And yeah, you think. And
sounds like it.
Yeah, sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's ultimately why I became a nutritionist. It's because I wanted to help people. And I wanted to let people know that their invisible conditions, whether it's visible or not, they're just not alone. And there are ways to, combat, their negative mindset with a positive one.
Yeah. And the not alone thing is huge. I mean, I know I've had people kind of minimize that in the past. Like, okay, now we're not alone. Now we're all in the same room. Now what? So what? So what? We're not alone. But that's, what, with invisible conditions, especially, no matter how widespread it is, you still feel by yourself, because you almost kind of feel, it's like nobody knows that you have it. And so it's almost like a game you play with your brain, with yourself in your head. You're like, that's why I say at the beginning of the show, it's not all in your head, because it can feel like that. And when you identify with somebody else, that has the same thing, that's dealing with the same thing you are, that is huge.
Exactly. So, and that was the thing when I was the day I was diagnosed. Like my mom was thinking that it was my anxiety, because I do suffer from anxiety and depression.
Yeah.
And PTSD. So my mind's also been through the ringer. And but I've learned to combat the feeling of just not feeling well.
Yeah.
And the feeling of not feeling mentally well. And there's a huge difference. I mean, if you know something is wrong, and this is where advocacy comes into play.
Yeah. And
I preach this a lot with my clients. You know your body better than anyone else. And being a young woman, especially in today's world, I mean, with everything going on, and not just the United States, but the world at large, you have to be your own advocate. Yes. Because who else is going to do it for you? No one.
It's true. You really do. And it's crazy that we're here,
Yeah.
But we are. So like it or not, it is what it is. So you got to know what to do with it from this point, right? So, well, I tell you what, this has flown by, and we are at our second commercial break. And so we're going to do that for a minute or two. But I have a question I want to ask you for the other side of the break, and that is about community support, because we're going to talk about that in this third segment, among other things. But so stick around, everybody. We're gonna talk about that and how you can find support in this, and we'll see you in just a couple minutes.
Eva Black Occurrence here, and I am the host of One Punch Superstars, where we meet real people who chose to fight for their hopes and their dreams and become the champions of their destiny. You can find us on Achieve TV every Tuesday and Wednesday at noon Mountain Standard Time, right here on E360 TV.
All right, we are back. Sorry, I saw your comment that you sent me. That's funny. Okay, gotta love it. What do you do? Welcome to live TV, everybody. Gotta love that. The cat walking across stuff. That's awesome.
Oh, God,
Okay,
yeah.
so actually had a call with somebody yesterday, and their cat literally just walked. I think their desk is like right here or something, and their cat just went like this.
Oh,
Like,
gee.
right across, right in the middle of a Zoom call. I was like, oh, okay, so it's that kind of thing. All
Oh, and
right.
in case you're wondering, I told him if it's not my boyfriend, it's my cat.
Yeah. Well, it's always something. So,
It's always something.
right?
It happens.
So I wanted to ask you, I wanted to make sure I asked you this, and then I do have a couple questions that I ask everybody, but I want to get to this first. What role did community's huge when it comes to invisible stuff, with stuff that not everybody sees. What did that community play? What role did that play in supporting you in managing this kind of condition and all the things that you've been through? How important was community?
Yeah, well, it really depends on your definition of community because, I felt really alone sometimes,
Yeah.
and I felt like no one really understood me,
Mhm.
and I felt like no one understood my position. In fact, I was actually let go from that corporate job because they couldn't handle all my doctor's appointments and stuff, which was, terrible.
Not cool.
It's just not cool. And I thought they were going to be so flexible with it, but they just weren't. I knew that for some immaculate reason that led me to Allie Daniels' Punch Drunk Soul program, which is a coaching program. I know, clever name, right?
Nice. I like it. I like it.
And because really it was a huge sisterhood for me. And this is someone who's never been in a sorority in college, nor did I ever want to be. In fact, they don't even have sororities at Roger Williams University, and which is where I went to college. And keep in mind, I actually majored in creative writing.
Okay, sure.
Yes. Sure. Sure. Because that's where all my resume stacks up.
Yeah, kind of like underwater basket weaving. Yeah,
exactly. However, the fact of the matter is that the sisterhood was my saving grace, and the sisterhood was something that I've never experienced in my lifetime. I mean, I did in high school, but all girls Catholic school can be pretty catty, and you have your cat fights as well. Speaking of my cat, she's meowing. And,
I was just saying, very, very punny of you. That was very good. I heard the cat in the background as you said that. That was great. Couldn't have timed that better. That was good.
Yeah, when life gives you lemons, you make lemonade.
There you go.
Exactly. And but to go back to your question of community, sometimes you have to bring the community to other people. And you have to bring community to yourself sometimes. Like sometimes it'll find you, sometimes you'll find it. And other times it will just appear. And by the grace of the universe or God or whatever it is you choose to believe in.
Yeah. It's true. So I have to do this. I have this clip. I'm kind of a movie junkie. I have been my whole life, and I love movies, and I I'm such a nerd with this kind of stuff, but this is so appropriate for this show, and I feel like this is a good spot, and it's literally a 4-second clip, so I'm going to play it real quick, and then I'll ask the question that I wanted to ask you, but see if you can name this one.
Okay.
Am I invisible?
I was gonna say, I don't think I've ever seen that.
I'm sorry, I love that clip because it's so good. Am I invisible? The guy runs his foot right over. He didn't even see him. Oh man, have you? So it's Get Smart. Get Smart. Steve Carell and Hathaway. Yeah. So anyway, but that is how so many people feel. You know, you're standing there on the curb minding your own business. And it runs you right over.
Exactly.
You know? Like, am I invisible or what? What's happening right now? So yeah, I'm sure you felt that way. I know I have. But in the midst of all that, this is a question that I wanted to ask you. There's a couple of them, but the first one is, in the midst of everything that you've been through with all the type 2 stuff and all the things before that we really haven't talked about, but wow, how do you, on a daily basis, how do you find hope?
Well, I find hope through my inner circle. And that's the thing about your healing journey, is that you have to find the people who are there for you no matter what. Like, for example, it's my boyfriend, it's my friend who lives in Spain. Sometimes it's my cat who's meowing profusely right now. Oh my God.
That cat really wants to be part of the show, I think. It's really talking.
She's really talking here. She's living up to her name, which is Sassy. So,
yep.
Yeah, but
well done.
Yeah, but in all seriousness, it really comes down to the inner circle and who you really want to be around. In fact, the purpose of being a high value woman, and this is what you get to be when you work with me. You get to be that high value woman, and she just needs to come out. And she can't do that without the help of her friends, mentors, and even a few LinkedIn connections. I mean, some of my best friends I met through LinkedIn, and some of my best friends I've actually met through Rebecca Caffiero's The Pitch Club.
Nice.
Yeah, and it was a really eye-opening year for me. And I got to work with now my best friend Alejandra,
Awesome.
who lives in Spain, and she's now my business partner, which is absolutely amazing to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it goes to show that, like, your entire life can change within a year.
Yes, or less even sometimes.
Or less,
yes. It doesn't have to be this big long thing. I mean, it could be you just meet that one person, right? Yeah,
exactly.
That's phenomenal. So tell us about. So you mentioned an acronym before, and So tell us about all the things. If people want help, people want to reach out to you, and people want to get what you can help them with. How do they get a hold of you, and what have you got? What do you offer?
Yes. So I offer a 1-year membership, which is going to be coming soon, to my website, which is also coming soon. So stay tuned on my Instagram at the April Federico. And you can also follow me on TikTok at Socialize Your Success.
Nice.
And you can also follow my podcast, which is Brownies for Breakfast.
I like that too. That's good stuff. Yeah, eat whatever you want, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and I'll actually tell you how I came up with that name. So I remember just thinking to myself, wow, I'm really craving something sweet for breakfast. And I look on Uber Eats, and at that point I had a healthier way of choosing what I wanted to eat on Uber Eats. And I see this donut place, and they have this vegan brownie batter donut, I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
Donut. And and I was thinking to myself, brownies for breakfast.
That's beautiful. I love it. What's wrong with that? There's nothing wrong with that. It's like people there was a comedian that I was listening to one, I can't even remember who it was, but he said something about, people fool themselves when they eat muffins because muffins are just bald cupcakes. It's like, it's just cupcakes without the frosting, people.
I love that.
Let's not be sneaking around, man. That's just what it is. So just eat whatever you want, really. Just be smart about it.
Exactly.
So people can reach you on social media. Anywhere else if they say, I need to talk to April right now, how do they reach you?
Yes, you can also email me at aprilfedericonutrition@gmail.com.
Nice. aprilfedericonutrition@gmail.com. I like it. Awesome. And I believe most of this is when you sent me the information, you sent me a couple links with all your info and your bio and all that stuff that's on the Facebook page and the YouTube channel and E360 and everything. So everybody, when you go to watch this on demand later, if you're not catching it live, when you go to watch it on demand, there's a couple links in there in that description of the episode that you can click on and find April as well. And then you can reach out to her through that social media. And I'm sure she would. I mean, obviously you're on a mission and I love it. So you're here to help people, and that's beautiful. Is there any last minute? We got about a minute left, and then we're done already. It's like time flies. So
it does.
I know, right? Any last thoughts you wanted to leave everybody with?
Yeah, well, first of all, I would just like to thank you for having me on your show.
Absolutely.
And this was really not only an eye-opening experience for me, just to be on a show, but to get to educate people through empowerment and vice versa, which was the whole theme of this show.
Nice.
And I will leave you with this one little piece of advice. Do not wait to get tested for anything. Otherwise, you would end up like me in the ICU for 4 days and 1 day in regular care. And just don't wait. And you as a young woman, and even a young man, or even if you're non-binary, you have total autonomy over your body. And you know your body better than anyone else.
Yep.
So do not let anyone tell you otherwise. If you know something is wrong, if you know that something is very much out of place, speak up.
Yeah.
Speak up, not only for your body, but also for what you believe in.
100%. 100%. I love it. That is the perfect thing to sum up. Yeah, I love that. Well, and you know what? Thank you, April. Thank you for being here. This was great. I really appreciate you being here and taking the time to get the word out and to help people in the way that you're doing it. And I love what you're doing. And maybe we'll do another one later once you get your website up and get all that stuff that's in process right now under construction. Maybe sometime next year we can kind of, where is she now? Kind of thing.
Yeah,
that'd be fun.
That'd be great.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate you.
You too. All right, everybody. All right, here we go. That was cool. That was fun. I feel like I always learn something. So that's really cool. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, like, follow, share, subscribe, all the fun things. If you find an episode that's your favorite, share it out. I don't care when it was. If it was our second show, if you really like it, share it out. People get benefit from shows no matter when it was. So I really appreciate everybody watching, and thank you for being here. Next show is Ryan Mayer, and he's amazing. He conquered his ADHD, is kind of his claim to fame. And so I didn't even know that was a thing. So join me Friday, November 10th for that episode. And until then, have an amazing day. We'll see you next time.